Alright, so we've got that primed. I primed everything in gray because that was the spray primer I've got. Plus gray is one of the colors that we are going to use for aging the wood, so that just saved a step anyway. And I went ahead, because I wanted to prime both sides of this to seal it, I went ahead and primed the corrugated paper as well, so we can cut that out and apply that. And then I've got a strip of drink carton that I cut that will be that center ridge on there. And I just did that same thing I did here, where I cut it out and then just scored it so that it would bend neatly. And we'll put that on. So let's put that together and we'll be right back. Okay, and now that that's glued together, we'll let that glue set up a little bit. I made it a little oversized so I could kind of trim this down and try to make it fit very neatly. That just kind of smartens that up there, and make sure that you don't have a lot of excessive overhang that you don't want. Probably would have been better to do with a razor knife because I just hosed that up, but yeah, there we go. This would have been the smarter way to do it. No one's ever accused me of that. There we go. Alright, so we'll get that ready for painting. Alright, so hopefully the sound is better now that I actually put my microphone back on. And what I'm going to do, this centerpiece, I'm going to apply some medium dark gray to that. And just to kind of get it to blend in with everything else. If I'd have been really clever, I would have cut this piece out before and primed it when I primed all the other ones, but as you can tell from the rest of this video and my other videos, if you've been watching a while, I'm really not all that clever. So, alright, we'll get that all painted and we'll go to the next step. Alright, so we've got that, we'll let that dry. And what we're going to do first is apply a black wash to all this to really bring out the wood grain and try to hide a little bit of that white foam core that I don't generally use for that very reason. But I had a pile of it, so we're going to make use of it. Sometimes that's all you can get, so no wrong answer there. Alright, I'm just going to mix up some black acrylic paint. I'm going to thin it out a little bit, add a bit of magic wash, which is just half and half water and future floor wax. And we'll see, I tend to run this a little rich, but you can easily thin it out. The beauty of that is you can do it with any color and almost pretty much any strength you want. So. A good heavy coat on there, and that gets down in there in that grain and really accentuates it. Okay, so we'll apply that all over the rest of that and be right back. Alright, as you can see, that goes on really dark. Once it dries, it lightens up considerably. So it'll initially look like you know, oh my gosh, I've put on too much, but it soaks in and lightens up as it dries, so not a big deal. Alright, so now we're going to do a little bit of dry brushing with a lighter gray. We're going to use our friend Quaker Gray again. And I'm one of those barbarians that just uses my hand. And we'll just kind of put a nice heavy dry brush on here. Start accentuating all of that wood grain. Try to catch all those corners and edges. And you can be pretty heavy-handed about this, because you want it to look like aged wood. Alright, we're going to do another one with maple sugar tan, and that'll really make it pop. Alright, so we'll get this all around the rest of the building, and we'll be back. Alright, and while you're doing your light gray overbrushing on that, see, that really starts to make that wood grain look nice. Don't forget to do your roof bits. We'll start to lighten up that corrugated iron. And here again, you can be kind of heavy-handed with this, because we're going to tone it down a little bit with some corrosion. But you see, that starts to make that a little... Just highlight those upper parts of the ridges there. Alright, so we'll continue on that. Alright, and for our last bit on the wood, as far as the highlighting goes, we're going to use our friend Maple Sugar Tan. And we're going to apply that exactly the same way, just kind of a heavy overbrush. And that will really bring out more of that wood effect. And give that a nice undertone for when we put our paint on there. Oops, got it in my... Got my wash mixed in with my highlighting, so that's not going to work. So we'll fix that and be back. I have multiple palettes for a reason, and right there would be that reason. So we'll kind of, and here again, this will tone down a little bit as it dries, and also if you get a little heavy-handed with it, that's fine. You can kind of correct that when you put the paint on. So it's really kind of hard to screw this up. And again, it's a step where you might look at it and say, oh my gosh, I did that horribly, and then just let it dry a little bit, get ready to do your next part. It'll be fine. You got this. Alright, so we've got that applied all the way around, and like I said, when it dries, it kind of tones down a little bit, a little more subtle, but like right there I got a little heavy. That's fine. We'll cover that up with some other color. In the meantime, I'm going to do a similar thing to the roof, but I'm going to use silver, and we're just going to try to use some of this, and we'll try and highlight the fact that it's metal. Metal. And we'll basically do it the same way we've done the others, just kind of a heavy overbrush, and that'll give that kind of a just that hint of metal that we want, just on the highest spots. So we'll get that, and we'll let that dry, and we'll go on and apply some nice bright colors to our building. So since our last one was green, I'm going to do this one in blue. The colors for the camp, green, blue, yellow, there may have been some reds. Of course, they're obviously very, very faded, so you don't want to be too bright. And then we will use a sponge to apply that. And that will give us kind of a peeling, fading look. And there's no set amount, just do that till it looks good to you and it'll be fine. If you get a little heavy, you can kind of knock it back with the part of the sponge that's dry. That'll help absorb that a little bit. Alright, so we'll go all the way around here and do the rest. Alright, so we've hit that all the way around, and that gives us a nice faded slash peeling effect. So we're going to do the windows and the door and the other windows here in just a moment. Okay, so we're going to do kind of the same technique. Some of these are a little small to be using a sponge, so we'll use a brush, but it's stippled on the same way. I'm just going to use some generic white, and we'll get a little bit on our sponge. And kind of go in here and maybe not completely hose the shot. And there, I'm going to have to do that a little heavier where I got a little happy with the blue. I didn't mean to get it quite on there quite so much. Okay, and just do that and kind of give it a nice peeling appearance. So that you can tell that building's not really been maintained. Our friends the pioneers are not here anymore. And maybe who lives there now doesn't, gotta watch out for that, doesn't take quite such good care of the buildings. Alright, so we'll continue on and be back. And like I said, you want to use a brush on some of these, like the windows. It's a bit small to be trying to ram a sponge in there. So just take it and kind of dab at it, sort of stipple that on. And cover up any place that the blue kind of slopped over. Which on this is a fairly substantial number of spots, but that's fine. But that just helps it kind of pop and stand out. And just take your time, try to be neat. Although there is a certain ease with which you can paint sort of ruined buildings, the neatness is kind of relative, so. But being neat is never a bad thing. Alright, so we will continue on. Alright, so we've got our door done. I went back and touched up where I got a little heavy with the white. I kind of went back over that with some maple sugar tan, but your final dry brushing color on this could be white and it would be fine too. So there's a lot of ways to achieve that same look. You know, and the thing to remember is you're looking at it at arm's length, so that covers up a multitude of sins also. Alright, so let's do the roof, and we will also knock over our paints. We're going to get our doorknob at 1.2 just to kind of pick that out a little bit. So we're going to start with some burnt umber, and we'll use a sponge. Let's get one that's not. Here, we'll just get ourselves a fresh face on there, just cut that off. And we'll take and just kind of randomly lay down a nice dark base. And you can be kind of heavy with this stuff. Because we're going to lighten it up considerably with the other colors. Alright, so we'll continue on with that. So I just took just a little bit of water in the brush and kind of thinned that out and kind of made a little bit of a wash to get down in there just on the brush. That's sort of optional, but it helps darken that up a little bit. So once you've laid down that base, then we will go ahead and go to our next color, which is going to be raw sienna. And we will do pretty much the same thing. We'll just stipple that on with a sponge. And we will add that, and you just kind of get on top of the inside the dark area, and you don't have to be super precise, but it gives you that layered rust effect. And that will also, you know, if you put it on what you think is a little heavy, it'll tone down as it dries also, you know, so it's not the end of the world there. You can put some random lighter spots on, just kind of here and there. Alright, so we're going to let that dry and we'll go to our last color. Our final color, and like I said, once this starts to dry, it darkens. We're going to use some light orange just to get some nice contrast. And I'm going to put that on with a small sponge. And this too will dry quite a bit darker, so if it goes on what you think is too bright, you can knock it back a little with the edge of the sponge, and then once it dries it'll be quite nice. Give a very, I won't say subtle, I mean it'll be very strong rust effect, but it'll look rusty. Alright, so we will let that dry and see what we get. Alright, so there's our building. It's pretty, knock that over. Once that dries a little, it'll get darker like that and get a little more subtle, but yeah, so we'll make a number more of these, probably about another 10, and some other buildings, and we'll have quite a summer camp to go to. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope it helped. I really do appreciate you watching. I know some of you guys watch all of these and some of you don't, and I understand it. My videos aren't the best. So if you hung in there, you're awesome. And remember, the way is forward.